Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you from the X Zone Broadcast Network, and I'll be your guide tonight as we travel down that long, dark road, attempting to find the answers as to what's really on the other side. And to join us on that journey tonight is Mr. Tom Butler, co-director of the Association of TransCommunication, or ATransC, along with his wife, Lisa. And folks, I think this whole topic could easily be on the cutting edge of what I think could break open the issue of what is on the other side, because it's in many ways scientifically possible to prove. As I said, Tom is, along with his wife Lisa, the co-directors of the Association of TransCommunication, ATransC for short, which was founded by Sarah Estep in 1982 as the American Association of Electronic Voice Phenomena. He is also ordained by the National Spiritual Association of Churches and is certified by them as a spiritual healer and teacher. Tom holds a Bachelor of Science Degree in Electrical and Electronic Engineering and served in the United States Air Force and later in the Civil Service branch of the Air Force at the USAF Logistical Command. In the private sector, he held positions as a communications and network engineer. He and his wife later supplied marketing assistance to the Universal Studios for their film, White Noise, starring Michael Keaton. Tom is also a published author. His books include Handbook of Metaphysics, One Who Cares, Two Worlds, One Heart, Your Immortal Self, Exploring the Mindful Way, and his latest book, published in 2018, Exploring the Mindful Way. Tom Butler, welcome to Paranormal Stakeout.
Thank you. That wears me out hearing all of that.
Well, I'm only right what you've done, my friend. Listen, as I said at the top of the show here, I really hold out a lot of hope for the topic of instrumental transcommunication and its possibilities because of the scientific nature of what it is and radio waves and whatnot. I just hold a lot of hope out for this. How did you get into this field? We'll start off with that.
Well, I've always been, I guess, a natural seeker. When I was in high school and I gave up being the first man on the moon, I turned to the Rosicrucians. They used to have an advertisement in the science magazines that thoughts have wings. Mm-hmm. And so I joined up with them and read a few manuscripts and didn't understand a word they were saying. You know, they were saying, I think it was Thursday nights that I was supposed to meet them on the other side or whatever. And okay. I have an idea what that means now, but it took me a long time to get an idea of what that is. But since then, you know, all of the seeking was for personal improvement until Lisa started getting into. She read Sarah Estep's book about EVP and decided to try it. And as an engineer, I thought that she was on a wild goose chase. And after I finally heard one of her EVP, I jumped right in with both feet. And since then, when she was starting to ail a little bit, I offered our services to take over the association. And so that's where we are now. Our responsibility was to be, you know, to bring this to the public as well as study it. And being an engineer, we tried also to make it scientific.
Well, let's back up just a little bit here. Sarah Estep, she founded the American Association of Electronic Voice Phenomena. I believe she died in, 2008, roughly?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And you got to know her just through her readings and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about her organization and how that developed into what you're doing today.
Well, Lisa joined it, and it was she had a newsletter, a quarterly newsletter, and basically she was just acting as a way of connecting everybody together. And back then, EVP kind of more or less was discovered in 1959 when voices were found on audio tape by accident. And so 82, you know, that's not very, very far down the road people still didn't have much of an idea what it was. So Sarah was being a very brave lady to start this association. And what's happened is that it was so focused on EVP. When we took over, after a while, we realized that, gee, it's visual forms of it. There's all kinds of phenomena that are associated with really trans communication, trans being the prefix for across the veil.
Right. And EVP, of course, stands for electronic voice phenomenon. And we first heard about it through Jurgensen and Raudive back in the 50s, when Jurgensen accidentally caught voices when he was recording birds, if I remember correctly. And Sarah Estep she's responsible for getting it well known in the U.S. Is that correct?
Well, she came a long ways towards it, and certainly we wouldn't have gotten involved in it if it hadn't been for her. I think that what really turned the corner for EVP was the movie White Noise. When they talked us into helping them market it, they said that they wanted to make it as well-known a household term as crop circles and UFOs. Mm-hmm. And by the time they were through, that was pretty much the case. Now, virtually every ghost hunting club or hauntings investigation group has at least one or more people who are EVP practitioners.
Mm-hmm. Let's take this a bit further. EVP, that's what we all heard about, but you actually call this instrumental trans communication. Give us the full meaning of that and where that fits into the picture.
A fellow in Germany named Ernst Sinkowski coined that term, and he coined it to account for there was a big flap in Europe with communication that was including cross correspondence and visual, like television, and that's kind of gone by the wayside. But he's a scientist in his own right. He's on the other side now, but he coined the term to be able to address more of a broad term. Remember, when the book that brought it to the U.S., pretty much the English-speaking people, was the book called Breakthrough, and that was by Raudive. And in it, the voices were called Raudive voices. And the publisher changed it to EVP, so it'd be more generic. Mm-hmm. And so, it's gone through quite a evolution. But right now, we study also the visual form, which is very similar as far as the physics go of how we think that these phenomena are formed. Both the visual images that are formed, faces and noise, mm-hmm. and the audio are both formed pretty much the same way. The voice is formed by transforming chaotic noise into voice, and the visual is the same thing, chaotic visual noise into. So they need to be studied together.
Okay, how does frequency play into this?
Not
much. Okay.
No, of course, we have to have audio frequency to be able to hear audio. So that's on the physical. It's a non-physical to physical influence that's occurring. And then in the non-physical side, the etheric, I call it, that's frequency really has no meaning there. But in order to be able to bring it into the physical and manifest it so that we can experience it, frequency is involved only to the extent that, we're listening to voice frequency sounds or we're seeing optical frequency sounds.
Okay, so but that still plays a part in it. We'll touch a little bit more on that later. Did you have any experiences prior to your wife Lisa looking into this field? Did you have any personal experiences prior to this that maybe piqued your interest?
Not in terms of the electronic voice phenomena or visual, but certainly both of us have spent considerable amount of time in what I call full immersion training in terms of mediumship and spiritual healing. And we've had considerable experiences in that arena. And again, I'd say that that's more focused on personal improvement. But one of the things that I think is helpful here is that our association has hosted some really world-class physical mediums for seances. And having been trained as a mental medium gives me the kind of necessary, I think, background to at least make sense out of the physical mediumship, the phenomena of things like ectoplasm and spirit lights. So all of those play together.
Okay, and well, we'll get back to the frequency end of that in just a couple of minutes. I want to take a second about your philosophy. In fact, we're getting ready to come up on a break here in just about a minute or so. But I want us to start talking about your philosophies of what you believe EVPs are, what they aren't. And you have some very interesting theories on that, correct?
Yes. That's really where it came down to, is that.
So if I'm not mistaken, you actually believe that a lot of the EVPs we hear really aren't EVPs, correct?
Well, of course, a lot of the ones that are being reported, the ones that you find on the internet, a lot of those probably are not EVP.
Okay.
I can give you an explanation of that on the other side of the break.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take that break. Folks, stay with us. This is an interesting conversation and what I think is cutting edge stuff in the world of paranormal research and investigation. So stay with us in just a few minutes. This is the Paranormal Stakeout on the X Zone Broadcast Network. I'm Larry Lawson. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV. Plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
We live in rapidly shifting times of extreme volatility and uncertainty. Such profound change brings a unique opportunity for the evolution of consciousness. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, host of Mission Evolution Radio Show, a program that explores the latest scientific developments and deepening spiritual truths supporting human evolution. Join me on xzbn.net, where I interview leading experts in science, physics, medicine, spirituality, and more. By applying divergent viewpoints to leading-edge topics, we uncover expansive and evolutionary truth to assist you on your path to enlightenment. More information and past episodes are available at missionevolution.org.
And we are back on this segment of Paranormal Stakeout. And my guest tonight, Tom Butler from the Association of TransCommunication. Tom, we began talking just before the last break about your philosophies of what EVPs are and what they're not. Can you expound on that for me a little bit?
Okay. We've learned when we're analyzing the phenomena, we've learned that we have to set a few rules. One of them is that we use listening panels so that, let's say out of 5 people, if I play it for them and I don't tell them what the sound is supposed to be, and they could tell me what they hear, and they at least a couple of them agree, then I can reasonably say that I probably have a voice there. Now, whether it's paranormal or not still is a question. One of the things that we say is that if it's only one syllable, like if I got an EVP that said Tom, my rule is that you'd set that aside unless I ask somebody to say, tell me my name, or something, so that there's an additional factor. But to say that these are communication from the other side is really a big deal. So we try to have some pretty stringent standards that we follow for saying that this is truly a paranormal phenomena versus this is something that is an artifact of the technology. EVP, the collection of what I call transform EVP, where we use a standard, just any audio recorder, and the available chaotic noise in the background, voice frequency chaotic noise. And voices are formed in the chaotic noise on the recording. Well, that's probably the most commonly reproduced experiment in the paranormal world. As it proves, as we begin to say that, okay, this is paranormal, this is proof of survival, and there's various tests that we can make for that, it becomes really clear that we are more than our body. There's you start getting to the philosophical side of it. We are more than our body. We are we existed prior to this physical lifetime, and we'll exist after this lifetime. We're able to communicate across the veil into the physical with the facility of a person that's still in the lifetime. So there's things that we're finding. And collectively, one phenomena like physical mediumship or healing, or they tend to inherit validity one from the other. And collectively, you begin to get a story that if this is true, then the consequences of that is this. And so you start to build up a model of what I'm beginning to think that the electronic voice phenomena and its cousins, the visual, is potentially as an important revelation about our nature as we've ever had in human history.
I agree, and I think that's where my excitement, if I can use that term, comes into play, because I see it as having the possibility that if it exists, we can prove something scientifically. Your philosophy then about the EVP is that it really has nothing to do with frequency. It is strictly spiritual, correct? Do I have that right?
Well, I avoid using the word spiritual. I avoid using words that have a lot of baggage.
Fair enough.
And what we appear to be dealing with, when I try to model this, as an engineer, I do model everything. And when I try to model this, what I'm finding is that the attention on a visualized outcome with the intention of making it real, that's a creative process, and it's universal. It applies to healing intent. It applies to what I call the intended order that occurs when attention is placed on a chaotic process. All of those are really part of the what we experience today as the physical experience are just manifestations of that creative process. And so to say, like the frequency in a large sense, frequency is just a byproduct of intention. First came the etheric, and then
etheric. What is that? Etheric.
Okay, the non-physical, the spirit world, if you will. And again, I avoid using the word spirit world, but to use the term, first came the spirit world, and then came the manifestation of the physical world, and it appears to be a group or a collective venue for learning, the physical, and you could find other ways of describing this. There are some people I've read that are very eloquent in this. I'm a little rough on it, but basically what it seems to be is that if you model this physical as a collective vision of which we're all participating, then the idea of frequency and electromagnetic and quantum physics, stuff like that, those all become just aspects of this model we have collectively created. Okay. But in reality, we created it from, we live our native habitat, our native world is us. Let's try to make that go away. It is us living in a conceptual environment where thought, and I like to use in parapsychology, they would say that in the psi field, the psychic energy, that here is everywhere. There's non-locality. And what I say is that everywhere is here because each of us is the center of our own reality. But collectively, when I turn my attention to you, then in effect I create a link of rapport. Okay. And that's a concept. That's a field of intention and attention. Okay. And like that. Well, it's not a magnetic field.
Okay. As an engineer, I would like, how do you see us being able to take something like this phenomenon, and prove it scientifically? How, as an engineer, could we do that, or can we, in your opinion?
Well, it's really tricky. The biggest argument against the survival hypothesis is what they refer to as the super psi hypothesis, and psi is.
Why don't you go through all that normal super psi and the survival? Why don't you go through that? Okay. Maybe that'll.
Of course, the majority of scientists and people in general think, or at least in the Western world, think that there's only the physical universe. That's it. In the super psi hypothesis, I think most of the parapsychologists in our field think that there's a subtle energy field permeating the physical, and they refer to it as the psi field, and the subtle energy they refer to it as psi, as PSI.
Right.
And they're using that as a placeholder until they know more about it. But basically, when you're psychic, what you're doing is you're psi functioning. You're sensing this field and getting information from it, or you're sending that information out to the field. And the reason they call it super psi is that when we get an electronic voice phenomena from when we get a message, we know it's not directly from us, and it even has verifiable information, and we recognize the voice. Well, what they'll say is that, we're psychically getting that information either from our own memory, from somebody else's memory who remembers that person, or from the life records that are still in the ethers, and that we're psychokinetically impressing that onto the audio tape. Well, we agree with all of that, except that sometimes that information is coming from a still living consciousness, not a memory. Mm-hmm. And that the only difference between ourselves and the still living consciousness of our Uncle John that's on the other side now is the fact that Uncle John is not in our body, physical body. And we are. And we're experiencing this through physical phenomena. So therefore, we're the ones that are able to implement it. And I'll always say that an EVP is caused by a non-physical personality, which may or may not be in the flesh, but it could be made possible or produced in the physical by either the practitioner, the guy that's running the recorder, or an interested observer. And that interested observer could be anywhere in the world, because we do, sometimes people will record for EVP for a friend that's on the telephone that's on the other side of the world. So what we're saying then is that we are the cause of this, and we could be getting that information from anywhere. And when we say that, well, okay, it really is Uncle John communicating with us.
Okay.
Well,
let me interrupt you here because we're about ready to go on break. Just so I got this clear, your normal level is people just think it's only the physical world. Super psi level, what you're describing to me, essentially says we may be creating these EVPs ourselves. That's essentially correct?
We're finding the memory somewhere that we're psychically accessing.
Excellent. Oh, well, that's what I'm getting at. And you're familiar with the Phillips experiments, I'm sure, where they're talking about our minds creating the EVPs ourselves?
Yeah, thought form.
Yeah. Well, we're about ready to take our next break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the survival. And I want to bring you back and talk a little bit more about how we can gather this stuff scientifically and create and produce evidence, I should say. Folks, stay with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes after these messages. This is Paranormal Stakeout on the X-Zone Broadcast Network.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X-Zone Broadcast Network. www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Demo.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
And we are back at Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Mr. Tom Butler from the Association of TransCommunication. Tom, really interesting stuff here. We were discussing before the last break your evaluation process regarding the EVPs, transcommunication. We talked about normal, meaning it's physical, there's nothing past that. We talked about super psi, who says that it may be, but it's also something we could be creating through the power of our own mind, if I got that essentially correct?
Right.
Okay. Now let's talk about what is the survival? That's the third component. What is survival?
Okay, just hang on just a second here.
Okay.
Okay, I'm fine time to get a cough. So the one thing that, in order to be able to prove we have survival in the first place, is that we have to think of a way of being able to get a recording or some kind of information from the other side that nobody ever heard of before. Excuse me. Nobody knew about. It's not in the memory, the Akashic records, and so I have one example of that. But the task for us is to be able to design experiments that basically preclude prior knowledge. Mm-hmm. And we've taken a couple tracks at it, but it's going to take, I think, a lot more. One of the problems I have right now is that for our association, the popularity of devices, spirit boxes, have basically wrecked it for us to try to have practitioners who know how to record, transform EVP. We can't use spirit box EVP because there's too many unidentified, unaccounted for artifacts in them.
Explain to my audience what you're talking about when you say spirit box EVPs.
Okay. Years ago, we had a member of the association named Frank Sumpton. He came up with the Frank box, and basically what it was a radio that constantly swept the dial. And so in about a 3-second interval, it would go all the way through the dial. So you can imagine that you would get bits and pieces of radio broadcast. And so your output data stream was this staccato noise. Well, he said that was producing EVP. And the problem we had was that every time we did any kind of research with it, the listening panel wouldn't agree at all with it, especially if you get rid of the one-syllable outputs. So basically what's happened now is that anybody can really easily produce EVP by getting a spirit box, and they have other devices, radio apps on the cell phone. But what they'll do is they'll put out this output that it's opportunistic, and we can't prove that's EVP, and they aren't proving it to us that it's EVP. So basically, we've drawn the line and said that after all of our study, and we've spent a lot of money trying to study this, we finally said that we just aren't even going to mess with it for now. So our requirement for research is that it's just ordinary chaotic background noise and an audio recorder, and the voice is formed in that. The physical process we think is underway here is what they call stochastic amplification. Telecommunications use that a lot. Basically what it amounts to is that if you have a broad spectrum chaotic signal, audio signal, and you mix that with a very weak small signal, intelligence, like a voice, that the voice will be basically amplified to the surface in that noise. And we think that a weak telekinetic or psychokinetic signal that's representing the EVP is being amplified in the electronics of the audio recorder.
Okay.
In that noise. Well, we see virtually the same effect with visual production of phenomena. We use a video loop technique where we have the visual camera, the camcorder, facing a television screen, and the output of the camera is going into the television screen, so that you've got a visual loop, no antenna or anything. And in that noise, you will see naturally emerging areas of order in the chaotic visual noise. Some of those naturally emerging areas of order have faces in them. Sometimes there'll be an animal. We've got my avatar that I use all the time on the internet is one of those faces. But the fact that they're both the audio and the visual are using essentially the same physical process gives us something to study.
Now I am not an electrical engineer like you, so help me with this. This goes back to one of my original questions about frequency vibration. There are a lot of folks that I consider to be well-schooled, all hold high regard in that if there is communication from the other side, they're manipulating frequencies and noises so that we can contact them. So that does bring the frequency question into play.
We found, we've had a lot of people say, okay, if it isn't ultrasonic, it's not real EVP, or subsonic, same thing.
Okay.
If it isn't on the reverse side, it's not EVP. There's a lot of theories that really have held sway for a long time, but it gets down to what we've decided is that basically if this is communication with intelligent people, they're going to talk where they know we're listening. So that's one of the things. That when you say that, for instance, they'll say it has to be ultrasonic. Well, the process of bringing it from ultrasonic down to audio leaves room for EVP formation in that process. So, this is really an interesting point. A parapsychologist doing research on distant healing used magnetic sensors. Magnetic field sensors on the patient, and then so they did distant healing and everything, and they had variations in the magnetic field. They said, well, okay, so there's a magnetic field component to the distant healing, and we don't see any precedence for that in our research. But what we do see is that the same electronics in that magnetometer is in, basically a transistor junction.
Okay.
And so all that magnetometer can do is show its output has to be magnetic variations in magnetic field. It can't tell you that there's a voice there. So the artifact of that magnetometer is that if you're imposing intended order on that transistor junction, it's not going to be able to tell you that it's your intended order. It's a magnetic variation, and we don't think there is any such thing as a magnetic variation because we haven't seen it in any of our other research.
Okay, and when you talk about your research, just so that I'm clear, what kind of experimentation are you doing, and how, in layman's terms, that a simple old cop can understand? How is your research showing that magnetic energy can't carry it?
Okay,
explain that.
The simplest one is you take a little transistor radio, because when it loses its signal, it'll just produce noise.
Right.
And you take an audio recorder that's set to record. We like voice-activated recorders. And you put them together in a tin can and bury the tin can in the ground. Well, no radio signal is going to get to it. No magnetic fields really are going to get to it. You can record EVP. I mean, it's been done. You can throw a radio and a recorder in a microwave oven. Don't turn the thing on. But that's a screened room. A Faraday cage is a military grade copper screen room that excludes audio, the signals, all the signals that be involved in an EVP formation are excluded, and they're still getting EVP. So that pretty much stops the EMF issue, the magnetic field issue, the electrical field issue, and it leaves us with a non-physical influence.
So going by what you're describing to me, then it's going to be almost impossible to scientifically prove EVP's connection with radios or anything else.
You can prove that they aren't connected.
That's probably a better way of putting it. Very interesting.
But one of the things that's really a challenge for psych research, is that we know of no way to shield against the influence of intention, psychic energy. You can't put a mental medium in a Faraday cage and have stop the communication between.
And you've actually done experiments in a Faraday cage where electricity cannot get in, and you've received EVPs. You've actually done those experiments.
It's actually, there's a friend in Scotland who did them with the ions Faraday cage in Petaluma, and he's published that report in 2 articles with the Society for Scientific, Psychical Research, SPR.
I'd love his name. We can talk about that later. I'd love to get his name and read those articles. But we're about ready to take our last break. So, Tom, can you hang in there for one more section?
Sure can.
Okay, folks, stay with us. Larry Lawson, Paranormal Stakeout. Stay with us for our last segment. We'll be back on the other side.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
The concept of a new age has been around since the late 19th century, yet much of its original meaning has been lost. What exactly is the new age? Is it a religion, a collection of obscure esoteric practices, a series of doomsday predictions, or an astrological event? The New Age Chronicles is a unique complementary publication bringing reason and grounded information to separate fact from fiction. chock full of valuable information to support you as we make the monumental shift into the new era. You won't want to miss a single innovative issue. The New Age Chronicles newspaper is coming soon to www.newagechronicles.com.
And we are back for our final segment tonight, Paranormal Stakeout, with my guest, Tom Butler. Just want to, his websites are ATransC, ANTRANCS.org, or ethericstudies.org, ETHERICS studies.org. I'd invite you to check out both of those websites. I'd also like to invite you to check out my website at www.paranormalstakeout.com or www.paranormalfbi.com, where you can find out what me and my group are doing. I also want to invite everybody to check out the great programming on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. www.xzbn.net will get you to all the terrific programming on the station, on the system. But also, if you want to get your favorite X-Zone shows 24/7, 365 on your phone or cell phone, I invite you to call 605-477-9614, and you can hear any show that you want 24/7, 365. So grab that number and use it. Tom,
yes.
Really interesting show, my friend. You've kind of enlightened me a little bit as to some of your work. I'm going to ask you a simple question. What do you believe ghosts are or spirits are? What are we experiencing? What is your opinion?
Right now, the message I'm trying to convey to people is the idea that we're really our sense of reality, our personal reality, is based on a database I call worldview that has been filled. It's in our mostly unconscious mind and has been filled with everything we've been taught by our parents and schools and the media, and also it contains our human instincts and our own spiritual instincts. It's pretty well emerging but well-established science that what happens is we sense something first in this unconscious worldview process, and the results of that processing is what we consciously become aware of. And for instance, if you don't believe in paranormal phenomena, an experience like seeing a ghost could very well be just flushed down the toilet, you never see it. Or it may be transformed into something that's familiar to you, and then you would sense it that way. Remember the early UFO abductions? I forget the name of the couple. There were two people in a car, and they were surrounded by rabbits. Well, the rabbits were pretty common back then. Well, if you look at the popular alien E.T. look, they have big eyes and everything, a little bit like rabbits. Until Whiteley Schreiber published his Communion book, which had the face of the alien on the cover, we were seeing EVPs were being the aliens were being defined in all kinds of shapes and sizes. After that book came out, our society kind of settled down on when they were abducted. That's what the abductors looked like. When we go into a haunted situation, excuse me, what I think I've been seeing happen, and which I think that there's people that know better than I do that need to do the research to prove it one way or another, or at least lay out the rules, is that we're going into that situation expecting a certain outcome. And so we're already primed to witness ghosts. When I know that when I record an EVP, it's not the local ghost. There's, that signal could be coming from anywhere in the world, or any reality. Well, so when you go into a situation and you record an EVP and you get a voice that can be verifiably associated with that house, is because basically you have called up that personality, or you've intended to communicate with that personality, not because they're stuck in the house, but because basically there's no distance on the other side. Excuse me. So when it comes down to ghosts and everything, I think that a large percentage of it is our unconscious mind giving us an image, and we have collective agreement on what that's going to be. Now,
we are what we learned, basically.
Basically, and yeah, and we create our own environment moment to moment. But now here's a kind of interesting thing. The poltergeist research is showing that typically there's a child in the home who's disturbed, emotionally disturbed, and they think that the poltergeist activity is a call for help. When the child is acknowledged and the researchers come in and start studying the situation, the activity tends to die off. And they think it's because the child is no longer, its need has been met. So on the one hand, you do have psychokinetic phenomena, levitation, stuff like that. You do have ESP or telepathy. I mean, you have all of these signals. But again, remember, we're non-physical personalities communicating, and we're bringing that awareness of that down into the physical. So you have to add that additional dimension to the equation. If you're going to understand survival, then you have to. The consequence of survival is that there's a non-physical aspect of reality, and the physical is just a product of that non-physical reality.
Okay. Well, bottom line me here, Tom. Do you believe in ghosts?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been spooked by the best of them. Yeah. Definitely.
All joking aside, you do believe that there is life that continues after our physical being is gone.
Okay. Now, I believe in survival. I know I'm really comfortable with the idea that I am an immortal personality in this physical body for a lifetime. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm happy about ending this lifetime. I had a heart attack here about 10 years ago, and I wrote an essay, and basically what it was that I'm not afraid of dying, I'm afraid of leaving.
Okay.
But
all right.
Ghosts, we are immortal. There's just the evidence is so predominantly in favor of that. People who say that the evidence isn't, they're not allowing. Like I was an editor with Wikipedia for a long time, and those editors that are anti-paranormal, they won't even allow you to talk about it. So therefore,
Here's my argument, though, Tom. Here's my argument. You say the evidence, and I'll tell you right up front, based upon my personal experiences, I do believe there is something on the other side. I'll put that right out there.
Okay.
But the evidence, and I'm a cop, and that's what I'm looking for, is the evidence to prove it. When you say that the evidence out there shows that it's occurred, I agree. There's tons of sightings, people with impeccable backgrounds saying things. But, Tom, there is no evidence yet. And that's where I'm trying to go with all this, is collecting that evidence so that we can prove it, for lack of a better term, in a court of law, court of our peers, I should say.
Oh, okay.
So where do we go to get to that point, Tom? You can't see the evidence there.
I've talked before about the idea that phenomena inherits credibility from other phenomena. No one thing by itself is going to prove that you survive. Collectively, you start getting into, like if beyond a reasonable doubt situation, mm-hmm. You start getting very close to that. There's a huge amount of really good, solid research that's establishing the fact of the existence of this psychic functioning, mediumship. I mean, I've been slapped in the face with ectoplasm, wet ectoplasm, that didn't exist a few seconds later and didn't exist before. I've seen things levitate. I've actually seen a hand move through a tie wrap in a physical medium situation. If you take all of these things together, then you have to begin to say that, okay, we have a non-physical aspect.
Well, we call that We call that circumstantial evidence in my business. And I don't disagree with you, but we've got to get past that point. I think you'll agree with me. In order for the studies to be considered mainstream, we have got to come up with a way to test, to experiment. Do you ever see that happening in our field at all?
I do, but see, right now we're not playing on a level playing field. Like in parapsychology, which is our arm of the paranormalist field of study or community, is parapsychology. Mm-hmm. Probably only about 3 or 4 or 5% of parapsychologists accept the survival hypothesis. The majority of them think that there's only the psi field and that we're communicating with memory. Mm-hmm. Then probably another 20 or 25% of them are into the study to prove that we're all crazy. And the thing that they're doing, though, in order to be able to prove, the animalistic psychologists, to prove that there's no such thing as psi functioning, they have to disallow the existence of the psi field. If that's not allowed in the field, then it's really easy to say, well, we're all delusional. But they're not accepting, they're throwing out too much of the evidence. And the same thing with the rest of them.
Well, and here's the problem. I go back once again to the evidence. We need to come up with something that, and I don't pretend right now to know, but I'm working towards it. That's my vision. That's my goal, to come up with a way, to come up with a system, training standards, a way that we can all work together to create a system that will allow us to collect that evidence. And I really hate to do this, Tom, because we could go on for hours, but we're at the end of our time. I really appreciate you joining us here tonight on Paranormal Stakeout. Great conversation. Folks, remember, www.xzbn.net for the entire program schedule, and hope to see you all next time on Paranormal Stakeout. See you on the other side.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Are you, or is someone you know, struggling with addictions, depression, anxiety, relationships, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, grief, success, and prosperity? Do you know that your subconscious belief plays a big role in the outcome of your hard work? We can help you permanently change the beliefs that may be the reason for your struggles and failures. We care about getting you the return on your investment and the results you are looking for. We can help you be free of the limitations of your past and in realizing your highest potential. We work with people by phone and Skype. For more information, visit us at www.ritasoman.com. That's www.ritasoman.com. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464.